Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today, July 8th, Marsh solo episode. A little bit of a Marsh pod type of takeover here on your Tuesday morning. So what are we doing? What are we doing on this fine Tuesday morning? We're talking storylines to watch in the upcoming SimWorld U season. SWBA season kind of behind us. Obviously, the season's behind us. I mean, Nadoe, my brother. But the off season. We should probably see a little bit of Summer League action here in the not too distant future, but once it gets, I talked to Siege about this whole most exciting offseason. If this was a summer blockbuster, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. There was some excitingness to it, but it wasn't exciting. So we're turning our focus to SimWorld U well in advance, right? Plenty of time before the tip-off of the upcoming season, but no better time, though, to talk about some storylines. We're doing the top 3 storylines that I'm interested in. Doesn't mean there's not more out there. There's plenty more. But these are the 3 things that as I look across SimWorld U, the things that catch my eye. And there's a couple of honorable mentions. So I think any team that's got a guy in the top 5, how does that team operate? Kansas, Texas, Illinois, Villanova. The 4 dudes that I expect to be the top 4 picks. I know I said top 5, but the top 4, right? Justin Bell, Arthur Lattimore, Nas Hall, D'Angelo Jordan. That feels to me like the group, right? Do the Fighting Illini put together something? Do the Villanova Wildcats, how do they operate around Justin Bell? Can Texas keep things rolling around Arthur Lattimore, and is Nas Hall capable of carrying this team back? Those are the top 4 of the top best teams, 3 of the top 4 best teams last season. And then, of course, Illinois had a nice postseason run with D'Angelo Jordan. So what happens with them is an honorable mention. What happens with Duke? This is a team that completely had to reconfigure their roster. They thought they'd be bringing back Cooper Flagg. He bounces. He gets the waiver to go to the SWBA. He's in Dallas. How does Duke respond? This is not a Duke squad that's lacking talent, but the runway is wide open for DeMario Duval the second, a guy who I've said he gives me a little bit of the Jalen Williams vibe, and that guy that is known. Duval was pretty well known when he came out. He wasn't quite a 3-star at a mid-major, but really good sophomore season as he heads into his junior year. You've got the return of Ilgauskas. You've got the introduction of Andrei Ivanov. I mean, I think Andrei Ivanov is the biggest winner right now of the Cooper Flagg departure, because now Duke can go with a 7'2" and a 7'3" front court. I mean, my God, John Shire is going to have some interesting approach there. And, of course, the addition of Pablo Guzman. That's going to be interesting. As always, what does UCLA do in their follow-up act? It's a team that's returning a number of starters or a number of role players from last year's squad. You've got J.J. Ortega, you've got Franklin Tyson, Evangelos Mullins, and Blaine Kidd, and Mitchell Morrison Cole at that list. 5 big minutes, guys. How does this team? We haven't seen repeats very often in college basketball. UCLA got to the title game for a second straight year but couldn't finish the job. So what goes on in UCLA? How do they operate and move forward with this squad? Those are some of the honorable mentions, and you can probably throw all the answers in with the Justin Bell conversation and D'Angelo Jordan as multiple. Of course, the introduction of Wake Forest struggled last season. Skinny Washington in town. Spoiler alert to some of the things that we're not going to talk about, right? But Skinny Washington going to town to Wake Forest. A completely rebuilt team. They have seven freshmen on this team that Skinny Washington is trying to turn around. Yes, you're returning J.C. Graham, your leading scorer from a year ago. You've got Carter Fields, a very, very talented forward. Skinny Washington, what does this team look like with him in tow? It's going to be a challenging season, but clearly there's belief in them that they can carry it. Although I will wonder if Wake Forest, who went 6-23 last season, do they go 0-2 against Louisville? Like, you know what? You want to get the FBI investigations going. Circle whenever Wake Forest plays Louisville. The former, what was he? I can't think of the word right now, but the coach, the honorable coach, the the ambassador to Louisville. I kind of like that skinny ambassador. I feel like skinny's probably already a nickname, but let's double nickname it. Skinny Ambassador Washington. I mean, Ambassador Washington. It's a pretty damn good. One might argue it's a little bit better than Skinny Washington. I mean, skinny, there's implications. Ambassador, I mean, that is official. Ambassador Washington. That's it. I'm calling him that. Ambassador Washington and Wake Forest. Of course, the introduction of what does Syracuse do, right? They get all of these transfers into Syracuse. You go from a team that didn't win a single game last season to not only a new head coach, but you're bringing in Mark Chisholm, you're bringing in Ethan Letterman, two guys that have been there before who had good seasons last season for Marquette. And then you've got this plethora of freshmen, LaJoran Tompkins III, Kylan Johnson, JJ Hoops, Caleb Boateng. This is a young basketball team, but a really talented one. So those are my honorable mentions of what to watch. What are my three biggest storylines? My three biggest storylines will start in no particular order with Alabama. And what does this Alabama team look like? I've said this many times. A team that couldn't quite get over the hump. They played really great basketball all season long. They've been one of the most consistent basketball teams in the last half decade in college basketball. What they haven't been able to do is finish the job. And the big question mark is you bring in Kai Killens, who's going to be your star freshman. You bring in Almighty Soul, another very talented freshman, and of course Leonardo Fields. And you're adding on to a group that had so much success last season. Now there's a huge gap to be held from the group that loses some of their leading pieces from a year ago. Quincy Henderson, obviously chief among them, out the door. Dwan Epps out the door. Can Alabama get back to that? And can Kai Killens be the type of guy that lifts them over the top? He is, one of the best prospects in college basketball. If he's draft eligible, 6'7", 202, he's the prototypical big wing. I think there's a lot of people at the SWBA level that would take a long, hard look and say, are we taking him over D'Angelo Jordan, Justin Bell, Arthur Lattimore, Nas Hall? He's in that category, man, as a freshman. He's without a doubt in that category, at least in my mind. But of course, I'm a little bit of bias there, considering everything that I've seen out of Kai Killens and where I've stood on that. But Kai Killens Island, the stock couldn't be higher. The island is prosperous. We're having a great time. I know my man Sniper might not be the biggest fan of Kai Killens. We will agree to disagree there. But what does this Alabama team do in the follow-up? They can't get there. They have not been able to get there. If Kai Killens, Leonardo Fields, and company walk into Tuscaloosa and carry this team to a national championship, it's not going to rival anything that's done on the gridiron, but my gosh, that would be a statement and would be an absolutely incredible run for those guys in terms of legacy rankings from a team that won 30 games a season ago. Storyline number two, SMU. This was the surprise team, along with Xavier making their trip to the quad a year ago. Huge performances, right, from Cam Jones, leading the way of a team that started 5 freshmen in the postseason. That's tough to do. And what do they do in the offseason? They add Barkley James, who has almost usurped Benari James. I mean, these are the numbers. Let's compare these two guys. Benari James will go first. 15 points per game. 4 boards, 2.5 assists, 44% shooting from the floor, 26 from deep, 26% from the free throw line. On the other side, brother Barkley, always the second fiddle, right? Benari was the hyped one. Barkley was the chaotic one. 16 points per game, 3 boards, 2.5 assists, 46, 47, 79. Like, Barkley James has evolved into being the better offensive weapon of the James brothers. I mean, that's no disrespect, of course, to Isaiah James, who had a pretty solid season as a defensive weapon last season for the Gamecocks, but that's really where his profile is. Barkley James has evolved. That's the great second score for a SMU team that you still get Cam Jones back in the fold, but you've got a roster that's bringing back McAllen Duval. You keep Maury Washington. There's a lot of offensive talent on this SMU squad, and it's a you've heard everything that that Cam Jones has talked about in terms of wanting to make SMU a basketball school. Last season was step one. Step two is, can they carry that over? Can they ride that success from last year where they end with 19 wins on the season? Can they ride the success of making that deep postseason run into being really considered one of the I don't know if I'd call them premier programs, but at least one of the best mid-majors in an American conference that's very much wide open. Yes, Memphis is getting back Lacedarius Outlaw. That's going to be very fun to watch. Jackson State's returning D. Woodley. Beyond that, it feels very open for SMU to try to sneak their way into a top 2 spot in a conference championship game. Number 3, the third storyline. Let's stay in the American. Jackson State. I don't know what quite to think about Jackson State because D. Woodley we thought was gone. 20-point per game scorer, 4 boards, 4 assists, or 5 boards, 4 assists. Not easy to do as a 5'11", sub-6-foot guard. But it was an interesting decision, and that's kind of part one of why it's a storyline to watch. What happens in Jackson State? D. Woodley doesn't really have anywhere to go up. As a sub-6-foot guard who was profiled as a mid-first round, late first-round pick, now you're going to be coming out as a senior, as a sub-6 guard. Yeah, the scoring numbers are sick, but sub-6 does not translate well to the next level, especially one that relies so heavily to score inside, which D. Woodley does because he only shoots 27% from deep. I'm not talking about his Diva Woodley, moniker. I'm not going down that route. I'm just saying the interesting part of it is that's an interesting decision to go from a place where you just don't see a guy that was really well positioned to probably be a first-round pick to now you're hearing he might not even be a first-round pick. Maybe he doesn't get picked at all. That's question number 1, which only gets more interesting when you add a Jay Midoriya, a really talented on-ball creator, as your likely second guard. Midoriya's going to want to score. He's capable of scoring. And so I'm most interested in Jackson State to see what does the dynamics of this team look like, right? What is this team that has this superstar in place, or at least big personality? I don't mean probably not a superstar, but this big personality in place. And you're adding another freshman that has said all the right things. He says he wants to play next to D. Woodley. He wants to, thinks that the two of them can take this team to high levels. But can they actually get there? And at what point, if D. Woodley is not the number 1 option, does this thing blow up? Does it get chaotic? And does it kind of, go off the rails? Jackson State, for many reasons outside of the program and the school's control, has been interesting for people to watch, both in basketball and basketball and football, for the personalities that have entered. First, of course, it was Prime, Coach Prime. That led to D. Woodley going there. A lot of D. Woodley's decision-making to go to Jackson State was because of Coach Prime. Coach Prime is gone, and the circus that surrounds the football team is gone. D. Woodley is still there, and the circus that surrounds D. Woodley is not going anywhere. And can Jay Midoriya survive the circus, or does he try to become the primetime act? And if he does, and if he deserves to be, what does that do to the rest of the tent that is held up on the hot air that keeps D. Woodley rolling around time and time again? Those are what I'm looking forward to when we finally tip off college basketball. Be curious what you are. If you got any other thoughts, feel free to let us know. I appreciate you tuning in here on SimWorld today, on SimWorld TV on a Tuesday morning. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning with Sniper Jay here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.